The first article I will be speaking about now is Privileged Men and Masculinities, Gender and Fantasy Sport Leagues. The authors are Luke Howey and Harry Campbell. So pretty much this article is talking about how men's masculinity like role how does that play in fantasy sports? How does like fantasy sports, affect their masculinity and the way that they are? And also it talks about the roles of gender in fantasy sports. So there was a range of data on participants. They basically were trying to see how uh, fantasy sports, but they focused on fantasy basketball in this article, and they talked to women and men, trying to see pretty much how they feel about fantasy sports. The masculinity, trying to see the woman's role, if she's valued as much. And they kind of noticed in the article, it states how a lot of fantasy sports articles, they speak more on like gambling, or they said communications, motivations, but they don't really focus on um, gender as much. So now, when it comes to the methods, what they pretty much did in this article was they interviewed 10 10 husband and wives that the husbands own a fantasy basketball team. And they pretty much interviewed the husband and wives about different questions about trying to see masculinity, how the women feel about the men, how the men feel about the woman, and they were giving their details in the article, and there were certain quotes. And after they combined all the data from interviewing these 10 couples, what they pretty much got from this, experiment, you would call it, is they pretty much said that, well, women play little role in fantasy sports because some men might see women as not helping, as not helping as much, and there's kind of stating that like men don't value them sports wise because they see themselves as higher than women more of the time. They also said how there's a very small percentage of women in leagues, um, and it's kind of just it could be either a masculinity thing, or it could be a just women don't play as much because they feel like they wouldn't fit in, certain reasons like that. They also noticed a specific quote that I put was that in the results it said a relationship between the man and the woman is what we'll call predominantly conservative force, kind of meaning that it's it's kind of like the more traditional role, and that's why men usually play more, and it's just like how men are viewed in society. And they said that kind of the big reason that men can feel masculine when you're talking about that part is that they're privileged, the privileged masculinity, and the persistent hegemonies, which is another reason. So this article was kind of general, but it focused on gender, which I don't see as much, and it turned out to be pretty good.